very warm welcome. I am Gurion and you're watching Firstpost. In the next few minutes, I get you the top 40 updates from around the world, only here on Fast and Factual. Let's get started. We begin with India. After a 15-month delay, the Indian Army has received the first batch of 3 Apache attack helicopters from the United States. Transported via a US military aircraft, the helicopters will undergo assembly and inspection before deployment to their base in Jodhpur. Calling it a milestone moment, the Indian Army stated the state-of-the-art helicopters would significantly enhance its operational capabilities. In Bangladesh, the death toll from the Air Force jet crash has risen to at least 27. The aircraft crashed into a school in Dhaka on Monday. The aircraft, a Chinese-made F-7 BGI training plane, suffered technical malfunction moments after takeoff. The crash also caused a fire in a 2-story building in the Bangladeshi capital. At least 171 people, including students, were rescued, with most sustaining burns on their bodies. Yemen's Houthi rebels launched back-to-back missile attacks targeting Israel's Ben Gurion International Airport. Israel intercepted both attacks, including one involving a Palestine 2 hypersonic ballistic missile. The strikes followed Israeli attacks on the Houthi-controlled Hodeida port a day earlier, which Israel claims were to prevent the re-establishment of military infrastructure. The World Health Organization has condemned a series of Israeli airstrikes on its staff residence and main warehouse in central Gaza's Deir al-Balah. The staff residents were reportedly hit 3 times on Monday, sparking fires and causing extensive damage. WHO stated that women and children were forced to flee on foot under active fire, while male staff and family members were allegedly handcuffed, stripped, interrogated and screened at gunpoint. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky announced that both Kyiv and Moscow will hold a new round of peace talks on July 23rd. This comes after Ukraine and Russia held 2 rounds of talks earlier in May and June, but failed to make any breakthroughs. The latest talks will take place in Istanbul. The peace push comes as Russia faces a 50-day deadline announced by the US. Trump has threatened to impose sanctions if a ceasefire isn't finalized by that time. Ukraine will require at least $120 billion for its defense needs next year. This is according to the Ukrainian defense minister. Of this, $60 billion is expected to come from NATO and European Union partners. During a reported meeting with Ukrainian ambassadors, Ukraine's defense minister emphasized the country's strategic defense priorities as defined by President Volodymyr Zelensky. Trump will host President of the Philippines Ferdinand Marcos Jr. today at the White House as the 2 countries look to boost security and economic ties in the face of shifting geopolitics in the Indo-Pacific region. Marcos Jr. met Secretary of the State Marco Rubio and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth on Monday. Trump has threatened to impose 20% tariffs on Filipino goods from August 1 unless the 2 sides can strike a trade deal. The Trump administration has released over 240,000 pages of documents related to the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. The files include FBI surveillance records that reveals decades of covert monitoring and disinformation efforts aimed at discrediting the civil rights leader. The documents were released despite objections from King's families, who warned of potential misuse. The Pentagon has withdrawn 700 active duty Marines from Los Angeles following a month-long deployment during immigration-related protests. Deployed in June to protect federal assets amid unrest over ICE raids, the Marines were part of a broader force that included nearly 4,000 National Guard troops. Venezuela's Attorney General has launched an investigation into El Salvador's President Nayib Bukele and 2 top officials for alleged human rights abuses against detained Venezuelan migrants. Over 250 of them were recently repatriated from El Salvador's Secot prison as part of a prisoner exchange with the US. The migrants were allegedly tortured, denied medical care, and were sexually abused. El Salvador has yet to issue a response. In climate news, tropical storm Vipa hit northern Vietnam on Tuesday. The storm brought heavy winds and heavy rain near the coastal city of Haiphong. Over 346,000 troops were put on standby to handle floods and landslides. Authorities shut airports and evacuated homes in low-lying coastal regions. Wipa formed last week and earlier hit Hong Kong before moving towards Vietnam. In Philippines, thousands of people were evacuated after heavy floods hit Manila on Tuesday. Rains burst the banks of Marikina River, sending families to emergency shelters overnight. At least 2 people went missing after being swept away in a car in northern region. According to State Weather Bureau, southwest monsoon is set to bring heavy rainfall across Manila over the next 3 days. A relentless heat wave engulfed parts of Sicily with temperatures pushing well past 40 degrees Celsius on July 21st. Southern Italy is also bracing for extreme heat as temperatures are forecast to hit over 45 degrees Celsius this week. A red alert has been issued for Palmero City on Tuesday. Experts warned of power failures and wildfire risks due to dry conditions. In Turkey, planes and helicopters dropped water on a growing wildfire in Gateway. On Monday, the fire spread in Sakarya province as the high temperatures fueled the flames on July 21st. Authorities said hundreds of fires had been reported across Turkey this summer. At least 2 people were killed in separate fires in Izmir earlier this month. According to reports, beaches near Barcelona have been shrinking rapidly due to coastal erosion. Scientists said over a meter of sand was lost each year in some areas like Mungar. Strong storms and rising sea levels are reportedly causing the damage. At least a third of the beach was washed away since last year. Locals and experts call for long-term solutions like breakwaters. Moving on to business and tech news now. Asian markets held steady near a 4-year high earlier today, lifted by Wall Street's record close overnight, as investors assessed ongoing tariff talks and upcoming quarterly earnings. Japanese shares opened higher after an election holiday break, but traded modestly as the ruling coalition's election defeat was largely priced in by investors. Meanwhile, MSCI's index of Asia-Pacific shares outside Japan briefly touched its highest level since October 2021. Meanwhile, oil prices fell earlier today as growing trade tensions between the US and Europe raised demand concerns. Brent crude dropped to $69.69 a barrel, while US West Texas Intermediate fell to $66.69, both sliding nearly 1%. Investors were also weighing new sanctions on Russian oil and surging output from major producers like Saudi Arabia. Tesla settled its lawsuit against Louisiana officials and dealerships, ending a long-running challenge to the state's ban on direct vehicle sales. The company had accused dealership commissioners of targeting its sales model, which bypasses traditional franchise dealers. The case was dismissed in a New Orleans federal court after officials argued they were acting within the law. AstraZeneca announced a $50 billion expansion in the United States by 2030, including new drug manufacturing and R&D sales in Virginia, Maryland, and 4 other states. The company said the move supported its ambition to hit $80 billion in revenue by the end of the decade, with half of that coming from the US market. The announcement came amid President Trump's tariff push and calls for more domestic pharma production. US retail giant Costco is reportedly expanding to India, its first ever technology hub in Hyderabad. The new Global Capability Center will handle research, IT and tech operations, starting with 1,000 employees. Costco joins a growing list of global brands like Walmart, JP Morgan and McDonald's, all tapping into India's tech talent through Hyderabad and Bengaluru. A new report says India's Global Capability Center sector could be worth up to $105 billion by 2030. Universal Music Group disclosed it had confidentiality filed for a US listing. The world's biggest music label, whose primary listing is in the Netherlands, did not reveal the size of the US offering or how much it was planning to raise. This is after pressure from billionaire investor Bill Ackman's Pershing Square. In quarterly earnings report, Domino's Pizza beat market expectations for US sales in the second quarter. New menu items and discounts helped the company drive a 3.4% jump in sales. its first beat in 5 quarters. The world's largest pizza chain also reported a 4.3% rise in revenue. A new report said US tech giants Meta, X and LinkedIn had appealed a landmark VAT claim filed by Italy. The tax demand, worth over $1 billion, was based on user data being treated as a form of payment. The case, now headed to court, marked Italy's first full trial against big tech over digital taxation. Britain and ChatGPT maker OpenAI signed a strategic partnership to boost collaboration on AI safety and explore investments into UK-based infrastructure like data centers. The agreement included plans to invest over $1.3 billion in public computing as the UK sought to scale its AI capacity 20-fold in 5 years. Alphabet's Google and OpenAI announced their AI models had won gold at this year's International Maths Olympiad in Australia. This marks the first time artificial intelligence had surpassed the threshold in the global contest. Both models were solving 5 out of 6 problems using general-purpose reasoning systems that worked entirely in natural language and were tested on the same questions given to high school students in the competition. Moving to sports, we begin with chess. Indian women continue to dominate on the ongoing World Cup. Teenage sensation Divya Deshmukh doubled India's delight. This as she beats compatriot Grandmaster Harika Jonawali. With this, Deshmukh is only the second Indian woman ever to qualify for the Chess World Cup semi-finals. She will join veteran Grandmaster Koneru Humpy in the last 4. And India will host this year's Chess World Cup. The tournament is scheduled to be held between October 30th to November 27th. Sports Global governing body said a host city for the event will be announced in the due course. The tournament will see 206 players battling for the coveted title. India last hosted the event in 2002 in Hyderabad, where Grandmaster Vishwanathan Anand won the title. In cricket, Indian pacer Mohammad Siraj confirms that Jasprit Bumrah will play the upcoming Manchester Test against England. Bumrah's participation in the 4th match of the series was doubtful, as the team management had made the call that the star pacer will only play 3 tests. In football, Cameroon winger Brian Mbeumo joins Manchester United on a deal until 2030. The 25-year-old will reportedly cost the 20-time Premier League champions an initial $87 million. After joining the club, Mbeumo said he grew up wearing the Manchester United shirt, adding he is now the part of the club of his dreams. In tennis, 7-time Grand Slam single champion Venus Williams returns to the game with a doubles victory at the DC Open. The 45-year-old American joined compatriot Hailey Baptiste to defeat a Canadian pair in straight sets in the first round. Williams will make her return to singles later today. World number 2 Carlos Alcaraz withdraws from next week's Canadian Open. In a statement, Alcaraz cited Wimbledon recovery as the reason for his exit. Top seed Jannik Sinner and Serbian icon Novak Djokovic have already withdrawn from the tournament. And Wimbledon's controversial expansion plan is set to go ahead after a legal victory for the All England Lawn Tennis Club. The proposals would see the construction of 38 new tennis courts and an 8,000-seat stadium on the grounds of former Wimbledon Park Golf Club. Campaign groups have opposed Wimbledon expansion plan over supposed loss of green space for the residents. In hockey, Pakistan's Hockey Federation writes to global governing body FIH that it will be difficult to send a team to India for the Asia Cup next month. Pakistani sports body claims security risks, despite the Indian government giving Pakistan a green light for the Asia Cup. In dressage, India Anshul Agrawala, along with his mare Floriana with Hofgeismar Open. Agrawala, who represented India at Paris Olympics, recorded an impressive 69.89% points to finish on top of an all-German 6-member field. In motorsports, starting 2027, the Argentina MotoGP will return from a northwestern province to Buenos Aires. The track in the city is set to undergo a major renovation and update to bring it up to the current global standards. The city officials called it the first step to make Buenos Aires a Formula One host city again. And finally, from the world of showbiz, filming notices under the code name Surulin have appeared on Fifth Avenue in Midtown Manhattan, leading to speculation about a potential sequel to The Devil Wears Prada. The name refers to a key fashion monologue from the original film. Reports suggest the production may be using the alias to avoid media attention. Apple TV Plus has officially begun production of Ted Lasso Season 4, with filming underway in Kansas City and London. Returning cast members include Jason Sudeikis and Hannah Waddingham, while new faces such as Tanya Reynolds and Grant Feely have joined. Feely will portray Ted's son Henry. A first-look image has been released teasing the upcoming season. The Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences has opened its submissions portal for the 98th Academy Awards. Filmmakers must now submit a signed Oscar submission form and screen credits by September 10 for films released through June 30th and by November 13th for releases through the end of the year. A new requirement mandates producer sign-off before submissions are finalized. Demonstrators gathered outside the Ed Sullivan Theatre in New York City to protest CBS's decision to end The Late Show with Stephen Colbert in May 2026. The protest, organized by Refuse Fascism, followed Colbert's announcement of the cancellation on July 17th. The Writers Guild of America has called for an investigation into Paramount's action shortly after the company settled a $16 million lawsuit with Donald Trump, which Colbert recently criticized on air. Actor Malcolm Jamal Warner has died at the age of 54 in an accidental drowning. According to reports, Warner was on a family vacation in Costa Rica when he was caught in a high current while swimming. The Costa Rican National Police confirmed his identity. Warner was a key figure in 1980s television, and he is best known for portraying Theo Huxtable on The Cosby Show. That's all for today. Thank you for joining us. I am Gushin Galan and we'll see you right back here tomorrow. Until then, stay informed and stay tuned to Firstpost.